I was preparing to record a piano recital and realized that I've never thoroughly tested mic techniques for recording a piano. Luckily, my good friend Paul and his beautiful Yamaha G1 were available on short notice to help me run some tests. I intentionally limited the mic selection because I didn't want an explosion of options. For this test, I used a pair of Oktava MK-319s for close miking. I bought these mics cheap at Guitar Center and didn't use them for many years because they don't really have the same level of clarity as my other condensers. But when I tried them out on Paul's Yamaha piano, which has a really bright tone, I was pleasantly surprised by the sound. To record the room, I placed a Rode NT4 about 6 feet away from the piano. I didn't like the NT4 as much as the Oktavas for close miking, but I thought that it does a fantastic job of capturing the room sound. I also threw a wild card into the test, my Zoom H1 portable recorder. I didn't expect that the H1 would sound as good as a pair of large diaphragm condensers, but I was still curious to see how it would stack up in case I ever wanted to do a minimal location recording of a piano. For the blind listening test, I recorded 7 different mic configurations. I recorded the Oktava MK-319s pointing directly down at the strings, with and without the sound of the room. I also recorded the Oktava MK-319s pointing diagonally down at the strings, with and without the sound of the room. I then recorded the Oktava MK-319s pointing at the piano lid from the side of the piano. And for the Zoom H1, I recorded it pointing down at the strings and then pointing at the piano lid. All of the recordings that you're going to hear are completely raw with no effects. For the close mic recordings, I panned the MK-319s at about 30%. I thought that this provided a noticeable stereo separation without sounding drastic. For the other recordings, the mics were panned hard left and right. That's about it for the background. So without further ado, here are the 7 recordings in random order. Take a listen and see which recording you like best. After we hear the recordings, we'll listen to them again and reveal the mic configurations. And that concludes the blind listening test portion. We will now listen to the same clips in the same order, and we will reveal the mic choices and placements that we used. Listening to the recordings reinforced many of my expectations, but there were also a few discoveries. I was pleasantly surprised by the sound of the Zoom H1. I wouldn't choose it over a spaced pair of large diaphragm condensers, but it's good to have the option to travel light and do battery power recording. I was also surprised that I preferred the sound of the H1 pointing at the lid. Somehow it had more depth than when I pointed the recorder at the strings. I may experiment with placing it closer to the strings in the future to see if I could squeeze a little more presence out of the recording. For the Oktavas, I liked the sound of pointing the mics directly down at the strings. I felt like it gave the recording more presence. When I added the room sound from the Rode NT4, I got a sound that was both rich and accurate. For recording just the spaced pair without the room sound, I liked the MK-319s pointing diagonally at the strings. I felt like it resulted in a more balanced tone than when I pointed the mics straight down. The thing I wasn't crazy about was a pronounced thump from the sustain pedal. My theory is that I was hearing the sound of the dampers hitting the strings. The next time I orient the mics diagonally, I'm going to try to point them in the opposite direction, away from the dampers. That's about it for my piano recording experiment. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making the video. Hopefully we all learned some new things along the way.